On this episode of Locked On Lightning, we're previewing tonight's game against the Detroit Red Wings. But first, let's play that music.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I want to thank all of you for making us your first listen of the day. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. Drop us a comment below on YouTube and let us know how we're doing, as well as what you think. Predictions, questions, comments. On this episode of Locked On Lightning, we're discussing tonight's game against the Detroit Red Wings Atlantic Division matchup once again. And I've said it once. I've said it a million times. I said it on the last episode. I love when the Lightning play within their own division. I feel, and they certainly do, there's no doubt about it, but I feel like, numbers aside, the game means something more. The game, it almost has that playoff-like atmosphere. You know, like, tonight will be intense, and I'm sure Thursday against the Nashville Predators will be just as intense. But there's just that added element, that extra spice that you don't see in out-of-division, out-of-conference games. Even within conference, I think if it's out of division, I still think it's, I don't know, it just doesn't feel the same as if when Tampa goes up against a divisional foe. And so the Detroit Red Wings come in tonight's game fourth in the Atlantic Division with a record of 12-7-5, goal differential of +1. They also come into this game with 5-3-2 record over their last 10, just coming off a win as well. So you're going to see a Detroit team in tonight's game come in that thus far, and I spoke about it in the preseason episodes that I did, I thought that out of all the teams that were going to take the biggest step in the Atlantic Division this year, it was going to be Detroit. We've kind of been seeing this progression from them over the last couple of years, and now that they've gotten their goaltender, and you know, that core of young talent that they have slowly accumulated over the last couple of seasons, those guys are now, I guess, by NHL standards, they are veterans. They are a good team. I think that they are a good team now. If that the difference is, the question is really is are they a playoff team as of right now? If the season were to end, they would get that second wild card spot out of the East. Obviously, you know, that's a little I would guess say, you know, jumbled wild card spots right now, because obviously all these teams haven't played the same amount of games right now. I guess by the All-Star break we could kind of make that decision as to whether or not, and that would be a good segment that we could definitely do during the All-Star break, as to whether, you know, reviewing, I guess, our midseason grades of not only the Lightning and the Lightning players, but as well as the Atlantic Division. Who should we really take seriously at this point in time, and you know, who's maybe fallen off. But yeah, the Red Wings, very good hockey team, I think. And let's look at the stats. 22% on the power play, 78.3% on the PK, 47%, pretty much 48 if you want to round up in the face-off circle. 3.17 goals forced versus a 308 goals against. So they pretty much give up almost the same amount as they force in. Somewhat a little bit around what the Lightning do. Now, if you look at the numbers, other than really the power play and I would say the goals force. These teams are somewhat very similar, at least on paper, without even looking at the players. But but I think that, and maybe I'm biased in this opinion, I think that Tampa obviously has the advantage, just if you're looking at recent performance and what, the last 10, the record of the last 10 for both these teams really proves, who's kind of just floating around in their last 10, and who's really made some progress. And obviously the Lightning have 8-2 in their last 10, playing phenomenal hockey as of late. We've spoken a bunch about how really this team has really turned it on almost to another gear in recent weeks, as we've especially, gotten to the later parts of November and then early December. So all sides point towards the Tampa Bay Lightning. Like I said in the last episode, all things point towards Tampa making a run for that second spot in the Atlantic Division, as well as potentially, if everything progresses in the way it looks like it's progressing, if you keep that percentage of 8-2 over your last 10, if you play like that, I think we could even have the discussion at the end of the year, as to whether or not Tampa could potentially be challenging Boston by the end of December. So, but obviously, not to jump too far away from too far ahead of ourselves. Taking a look at some of the big names on this Detroit Red Wings team, for maybe some of those who are not so familiar with the Red Wings. I've spoken about the Red Wings in length last season. I think that they were one of the most frustrating teams to play against. What they maybe lacked in skill, they made up for in just skating hard and really just doing little things correctly. Those little things may have not always resulted in wins against the Lightning, but those have always been tight games for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Games that, oftentimes, well, not oftentimes, but oftentimes would look like they were leading into overtime. And really, those were games where I felt in that moment of time where Tampa really should have won those games, not only in regulation, but by at least a couple of goals or so. And they were one of those teams where it's one of those matchups where I felt like the Lightning struggled immensely against them. And now that you've seen Detroit kind of take that step forward since last year, I definitely think that the Lightning are going to have their moments in which they struggle against Detroit, especially against players like Dylan Larkin, who, if you've been watching the Lightning over the last couple of years, he's the captain of this team, and one of the, I would say probably Dylan Larkin's at least a top 15 center in this league, if not top 10. He leads the team in points in 26. Uh, you also have guys like, let's take a look at the top goal scorer on this team, Dominic Kubalik, who came over from Chicago. I believe it was last year, if not the year before. He's a left winger. I would assume he's going to be playing on the same line as Larkin. He has 10 goals and 24 points. So, and if you look up and down this Detroit Red Wings team, you have a lot of players that can put points on the board. A lot of players that are in the double digits in points at this time, and players that we have spoken about on this show in the past, whether they've been on other teams or with Detroit. Names like Philip Hronik, who we are familiar with, defenseman, 22 points, six of those are goals. So the guy could definitely score goals out there. Lucas Raymond, who was one of the top prospects a couple of years ago in the draft. I think he's got a ton of talent. He's got 15 points in 24 games, excuse me. Seven of those are goals. Andrew Kopp, who, if you may be familiar with him, he was with the Rangers last season. Well, he was traded to the Rangers in the middle of the season last year. Was definitely a pain in the butt for the Lightning in that playoff series against the Rangers in the conference finals. Oscar Sundquist, we might be familiar with him as well, but the name that definitely sticks out to me is Mo Seider, defenseman, 21 years old. He was one of the top defensemen in the league. Well, what I would say top, I would say, yeah, he was probably top 5 in the league last year. Definitely one of the top rookies in the league last year. Off top of my head, I'm drawing a blank. I'm not entirely sure whether or not he was definitely a Calder Trophy finalist, but I don't remember who actually came out on top with that. But yeah, Mo Sider, uh, definitely someone who's going to go out there and play physical. His plus minus looks a little bit rough, so that tells me that his defensive pairing is a little bit susceptible to goals being scored against. So the Lightning definitely need to take advantage of that, and I'm sure that they're looking at that on the score sheet and definitely on the stat sheet pregame and looking at that as maybe that's a weakness that could be exploited throughout the game. And then you got a couple of other names. I'm not going to list off every single player on this team. Tyler Bertuzzi, who Lightning fans, if you watched the Lightning, the Red Wings last year, you should be familiar with him. Adam Ernie, Oli Mata, a couple of players that are coming back from last year, and then the two goaltenders on this team, and one of them who I've spoken about. Actually, the Lightning should be familiar with one of these guys at least, but if you listen to the Locked On NHL Thursday edition with me and Chris Masilli, we talk about this other goaltender as well. But Ville Husso came over from the Blues in the offseason, a guy who I really thought, and I think a lot of people now, excuse me, are looking at the Blues as to why would you give this guy away and keep someone like Jordan Binnington. But yeah, definitely two goaltenders in net that could come out, either one who are very good. In my opinion, the numbers don't always tell the story. Alex Nedeljkovic, I think, is a very good goaltender as well. So, we'll talk about more about these two goaltenders, but really to sum it up, I think that the Lightning will have a tough game ahead of them in this one tonight, and they'll definitely need to come out guns a-blazing. So we'll talk about more about this game in just a little bit. But first, I want to talk about today's sponsor, and that is SimpliSafe. Now, at Locked On Lightning, we believe home should be where you and your family feel safest, especially over the holidays. This season, give yourself and the family the gift of peace and protection with the #1 rated home security system, SimpliSafe. And right now, SimpliSafe is offering Locked On Lightning listeners 40% off a new security system. But don't put this off. Because this is here why I love it, because I love that they have the 24/7 monitoring agent. So if you have any questions or whatever the case may be, there's someone always there that could help you. And the best part is that SimpliSafe was named the best home security system of 2022 by U.S. News and World Report for a third year in a row. Like I said, I love the 24/7 professional monitoring service. It costs under $1 a day. That's less than half the price of traditional home security systems. So don't miss your chance to save big on my favorite security system. Get 40% off any new system at simplisafe.com/lockedonnhl today. That's simplisafe.com/lockedonnhl, because there's no safe like SimpliSafe. So continuing our discussion, excuse me. Continuing our discussion, now we spoke about players to watch out for the Red Wings. And, if you're watching me on YouTube, I am just gulping down tea because woke up with a cold today. But so sorry for that. And once again, if you're watching on YouTube, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Give us a follow on our social media pages as well, at LO_Lightning on Twitter, as well as Locked_Lightning on Instagram. Give me a follow at DenkyDank, DENKYD8NK. Love hearing from all of you. And don't forget to hit that notification button if you're listening to us on an app. So as soon as the newest episode drops, you will be notified. So, we spoke about the Detroit Red Wings. Their goaltending situation very much interests me because I look at the players on every opposing team. And I always, when I'm evaluating or previewing a game, if you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that I place a large amount of stock into opposing goaltenders, because I feel at the end of the game, I look at it. The prime example is the Edmonton Oilers. You have two of the best players in the world, but if you can't stop the puck, those guys could come out and score 3-4 goals. But if your goaltender gives up 5 or 6, it really doesn't matter. So, you have to have good goaltending, as we know with the Lightning. I expect Vasilevsky to play in net tonight, and then Elliott will get the start on Thursday against Nashville. As for tonight, I don't mind seeing either or of these guys. I would like to see, obviously, if you're looking at the numbers, one will definitely pick Alex Nedeljkovic, for those of you who may remember. He was with the Carolina Hurricanes a couple of years ago, and then the Hurricanes weirdly traded him uh not this offseason, but 2 off seasons ago to Detroit, and he didn't exactly put up the best numbers last year, but I think a lot of that had to do with, the players that were in front of him. Um, and then what happens? The Detroit Red Wings go out and they sign Ville Husso, who right now has a record of 10-4-3 with a goals against average of 2.58, save percentage of 9.12, and 3 shutouts. So as much as I would like to see Nedeljkovic in net, I think that with the way the Lightning are playing, the way they've been scoring, like I said on the previous episode, last game, I thought the Lightning, those are the kind of games you love. The game against the Toronto Maple Leafs, those are the kind of games you love. You'd love to see contributions from everybody. As much as I would like to see the stars on this team, the Hedmans, the Stamkoses, the the points, the Kucherovs, those guys go out there and score and put points up. You definitely want to have, when you're looking at a performance from the Lightning, you definitely want to have an all team performance. You want to have a messy stat sheet in terms of points. They had 9 different players in the last game tally a point, and I would definitely like to see more of that in this game. And I definitely think that's going to be really what the goal is in this game as well against the Detroit Red Wings, is that you want to get everybody involved. You definitely want to allow Vasilevsky to get comfortable early on, and the best way to do that is to score first. I think that if the Tampa Bay Lightning could do that, I really think that they're going to be set, especially against a team like the Detroit Red Wings, who like I said, they have made major improvements thus far, but really, I think that they're not there yet. I believe on the last episode or the episode prior, that the thing that the Lightning have in their favor against teams that are talented but yet young, like a team as the Detroit Red Wings, that in the end, especially in this game, I think that we'll see it tight in the first 2 periods, and then towards maybe the end of the second and early third, we'll start to see Tampa kind of pull away. But that really all depends on them. I mean, we know what they need to do. And it shows when the Lightning score first this year, they're 10-3, 6-2 at home when they score first. So, I mean, that shows that they need to go out there and really assert themselves, really need to take advantage of home ice advantage. And when they outshoot their opponent, they're 8-5, 4-3 at home when they outshoot their opponent. So, you have to go out there and weirdly enough, as much as I throw out those numbers and I say, when they're out shooting their opponents, the record shows that they win. It's very strange when you look at their numbers, and I'm looking at Hockey Reference. When they're outshot by their opponents, they're 6-3-1, 3-0-1 at home. So the home ice advantage does play a factor, it seems, in that regard. So really, if they could outshoot their opponents, that'd be great. If they can't, not the end of the world, because when the Lightning lead after 1, because like I said, getting things started early, allowing your goaltender and your team to get into a flow, scoring early is the best thing you could do. And going into the first intermission with a lead is probably the most ideal situation you could have against a team like this, who I listed off the numbers before with some of the players on the Red Wings. There are players along. If Ville Husso is if he's on tonight, it's going to be tough to definitely keep everybody at bay. So especially if the Lightning could take the lead first going into the first intermission, in which when they go into the first intermission with the lead, they're undefeated. So numbers don't lie. I always say that there's always more to the story with numbers, but at the same time, in this situation, the numbers don't lie, and the Lightning really need to take ownership of their home ice advantage. And at the same time, I want to see a more multi-dimensional game. I spoke about it in the last episode, how they got outbodied, I guess, if you want to say, in the faceoff circle. Just Montreal really took advantage of just winning those faceoffs. Did a way better job. The puck possession was evident there. The Lightning still did a good job of firing off those shots and kind of keeping up with them in the shots on goal tally. So really, if Tampa could win the battle in the faceoff circle, play physical, but also have a multi-dimensional offensive attack. I think that they'll be in a good position to win this game, especially against a young team who, like I said, I think as we see this game progress, I think in the late second and the early third, we'll start to see Tampa, as long as they're ahead on the goal sheet. I think that we'll start to see Tampa Bay really pull ahead, and that'll prove that they obviously are the better, more experienced team. So, wrapping things up on the show, let us know below what you think the outcome for this game will be. My prediction is a 3-2 win. I think Vasilevsky is going to make probably a handful of great saves tonight to keep the Lightning in this. I think the Lightning will score first, but I think Detroit will come back right away with a couple of good chances. Now, whether or not they capitalize on that, I can't predict that much. I'm not Nostradamus here, but I think that we will see a lot of fight from this Detroit Red Wings team. Young teams often do come out of the gates absolutely flying with a lot of aggression. And really what the Lightning should do in those situations is really make sure that their counterattack is ready, because oftentimes young teams, when they're coming, they're flying around, they're taking a lot of shots on net. I wouldn't be surprised if we go into the first intermission and the Lightning are winning but being outshot by the Detroit Red Wings. I really think what it come down to in this game, I think the Lightning, since I believe they are the better skaters and have a higher level of offensive ability, I think we'll see Tampa Bay be able to get a lot of chances and capitalize on a lot of chances tonight on the counterattack, maybe catch Detroit on a shift change, especially going down the ice. And that's where guys like Braden Point will definitely come into the mix. Guys like Ross Colton, like Anthony Cirelli, who is making his playing in his second game of the year. So the Lightning definitely have the weapons. I expect them with Cirelli in the lineup for the second game in a row. I expect that face-off percentage to be a lot better, and of course, I expect a Lightning win. So let us know, of course, once again, what you think. And you can always find us on our social media pages at LO_Lightning on Twitter, Lockdown_Lightning on Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter at DankyDank, DENKYDANK. I love hearing from all of you. I've actually got a ton of comments, actually a ton of questions actually about Victor Hedman. Now, Vic Hedman, like I said, I mean, the numbers aren't exactly there, and it is what it is at this point with him. I know a lot of people expect Hedman to come out and have more of a higher point total. He only has 10 points on the season. One of those is a goal. So you know what? A lot of it, but it seems as though a lot more people, including myself, early on in the season, were concerned more so about how he was on the back end defensively. And I don't know if there's really that. There was a little bit, reason for concern. I spoke about it on episodes in November, where I noticed on certain plays, on certain games, it was very up and down with his defensive play, that it seemed as though he just didn't have that movement there. He did miss a couple of games, if you remember, due to an undisclosed injury. So maybe that was just lingering effects from that. But it seems as though in recent games he's sort of getting back to his regular self, and we might see more of a return to what we usually expect from him on the defensive side of things. So hopefully those recent performances are a sign of him normaling out. But if you look at his last 5 games real quick before we wrap things up, I think that the points, yes, the points put up tally has sort of been a cause for concern on the season. Like I said, only 10, one of those a goal. But if we're being honest with ourselves, he's averaging about 1 to 2 shots a game. So especially in his last 5. So, if you're going to come out and kind of be concerned about his offensive output, you got to look at what he's doing on the offensive side of things. Yes, you're going to have him bring that ability of scoring points in terms of notching assists, but at the same time, if he's not shooting the puck, really, what do you expect from him to do? We've seen him in years past really be more aggressive with the puck. I don't know if maybe Cooper has changed things a little bit with how he wants Hedman to play. Uh, or maybe it's just Victor Hedman, like I said, he was dealing with an injury. Maybe he's not moving as well as he would like to in order to be that aggressive on the offside of things with, while kind of sacrificing his position if there were to be a turnover and try to go back down on the other end to stop a break. But there was a play, I believe it was in the Boston game or the game prior, where I thought he did a very good job. I believe it was the Buffalo game where I don't remember who was on the breakaway, but I thought that it was a breakaway for St. Louis, and I thought he did a very good job defending that, skating down the ice. So the speed is still there. The ability is definitely still there. The vision is still there. So if you're worried about that, I wouldn't really take too much stock in the points. I would, if I had to choose between one or the other, especially when you have Mikhail Sergachev playing the way he is this season with 23 points. I think that we could live with Victor Hedman playing more of a defensive game. But like I said, that's kind of reliant on what we see out of Mikhail Sergachev in the offensive department. Because, those guys are kind of different players. Mikhail Sergachev, as I think he's still more of like an offensive, his game kind of points more towards the offensive side of things. Whereas obviously Victor Hedman, if he had his strengths are more so towards the defensive side. So if you have that good mix, especially with guys like Eric Chernak on the ice and Ian Cole, I think the Lightning could live in the long run with Victor Hedman having somewhat of a down offensive season. So but I would like to see him score a goal tonight, just so we could kind of maybe we could see him get things going for himself. And maybe that's just something he needed. Maybe he needs to get another goal just to kind of get that, even though he has one on the season already. I still think, if once players kind of go games without scoring, you kind of get that monkey, on your back and you start getting in your own head. So we'll have to see. Maybe that's just it. Maybe it's more of a mental thing. And like I said before, I would like to see Victor Hedman, as well as the whole defensive core as a whole, be more aggressive on the offensive side of things. So hopefully the Lightning pull off a 3-2 win tonight, or just a win in general, preferably in regulation. They increase their gap between them and the Red Wings, as the Red Wings are 2 points behind the Lightning. And if with a Lightning win, I would like to see them close in on the Toronto Maple Leafs in the Atlantic Division. So tomorrow, join us for the recap of that game. But in the meantime, that's been it for this episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I'll talk to you next one.